live. How exciting is that? We are doing we're doing a ISO IEC 2000 no 24 wait 42001 discussion. Hey Keeks, what's up?
Hello, I'm back. Sorry about
Are you
that.
back? Did you break it?
Great start.
All good.
Carry on,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, I think do you want to intro yourself first, Keeks?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Sorry for my brief moment on camera there, but I'm Keegan. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Centre for Trustworthy AI, and I will be hosting these webinars moving forward. So it's great to see you all here and looking forward to talking about this one on ISO standards. That every board should pass. You know, when I saw this, Chris, I thought of the Lord of the Rings reference of "You shall not pass."
Yeah, yeah.
Take.
You're pretty much on the money with this. So when I saw this title, I'm like, is this going to be the most boring webinar we've ever done? And I'm like, no, we will not make it boring because honestly, like audits and standards are honestly not always the funnest thing to talk about. So I'm glad that you've sparked it up with a little bit of Lord of the Rings humor. Thank you. Yeah,
No problem. So, Chris, I am going to hand this one over to you to kick us
cool.
off with.
Fab.
And I will be looking at the chat. If anyone does have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in and I'll share
Cool.
them with Chris as he goes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so let's rock and roll. What's up, everyone? I'm Chris. I'm a partner at Cloud Lighthouse, and I do pretty much everything. But one of the main things is I tell everyone that AI is more important than oxygen, your firstborn, and bread. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about governance. Hooray! We all love governance so much, don't we? I know it can be a little bit of a boring subject, but we'll lighten it up a little bit for you. Hope that's all good. Anyway, so we're all on the AI bandwagon, right? Isn't that exciting? Everyone gets an AI. You get the AI. Everyone gets the AI. I find this amusing because every single message in my inbox right now on LinkedIn is about the AI, which is incredibly exciting. So, congratulations to everyone writing to me about the AI. I feel as if we're in a bit of a Wolf of Wall Street moment, right? Like you remember that very iconic scene when they filmed, and he said, sell me this pen, and the responses were varying. But I reckon if somebody had said to us in this day and age, this pen is powered by the AI, we'd be fine. I like to call it the AI because nobody actually has a clue what the AI actually is. What I'm loving to see recently is I'm a big fanboy of the Microsoft Partner Channel. I do like it a lot. I've been here for a long time, and I'm seeing a lot of the Microsoft partners pop onto the interwebs and say, "Hey, this is my product, and we have put in the AI, so now it's awesome, and you should buy it." Like the guy selling that pen. Fine, but jamming a chatbot into your product doesn't make your product AI enabled. Just saying, "Hey, we've implemented a very simple chatbot, and what it does is it navigates you around our product. That's kind of cool, but yeah, you got a bit more work to do if you're going to say this product is now using the AI, right? Now, a couple of other things is stuff's gotten a little bit weird out there, and I do apologize that this part will take a little bit of a downward turn, but we'll lift it up as we go, right? But it is getting a little weird out there. I don't know if you can all agree with me, but I'm experiencing some strange stuff. Um, One of the things that I'm experiencing is this new thing called vibe coders. Now, vibe coders saying that they're professional developers, and this dude Leo on X or Twitter or whatever the kids are calling it these days, you know, he's all, "Hey, my SaaS was built with Cursor, zero handwritten code. AI is no longer just an assistant." Okay, I can agree with that. It's also the builder. Okay, now you can continue to whine about it or start building. P.S. Yes, people have paid me for it. So that's cool. This guy developed a SaaS-based application, vibe coded the whole thing, and then moments later he was under attack. Guys, I'm under attack. Ever since I started to share how I built my SaaS using Cursor, random things are happening. Maxed out my API, my usage on API keys, people bypassing the subscription. No, right? Creating random stuff on DBs. As you know, I'm not technical, so this is taking me longer than usual. Okay, yes, bro, because a tech bro like yourself is randomly just vibe coding things and publishing them. And yes, if you do that on a thing called the internet, people are going to mess with you. All right, well done. So something really important is that these kind of creepy weird things have been popping up every here and there, which is cool. The next one, which I found extremely interesting, is this one. So when you look at the Harvard Business Review, right? This is a really interesting article done by Mark Zoe Sanders. So if you should follow him on Twitter or wherever, you know. But I found this interesting because it's 30 use cases or scenarios where people are using generative AI. So when you look at when you look at the top piece, it breaks it down into six categories. You've got content creation, support, learning and education, technical assistance, research and analysis, and creativity and recreation. Fine. So looking at the colors, I'm naturally sort of drawn to the support one, and this is kind of life, supporting in one's life. So things that popped up to me were a little bit concerning. So what I'm going to do for those of you in the back, let me zoom in slightly and show you why I am concerned. Okay, so the primary use case for generative AI right now is that we're using it for therapy and companionship. Oh no, that is a problem. The next one is organizing one's life. Yeah, yeah, totally. I can see that. I use it all the time. But then we're using it to find our purpose. Um, yeah, okay, fine. That is cool, but it's a little worrying. And Keegan, you've got a psychology degree, right? Like you've done psych and all sorts of things. What do you say to this right now?
I say that's very scary because therapy and companionship, I can imagine if AI comes through with hallucinations or bad guidance and it's somebody that is in a state of their deepest anxiety or sadness or emotional states and they are turning to AI to help guide them. If they get the wrong answer, that could be life threatening in some cases.
It is life-threatening. And you want to see something wild? Check this out. So some people have even more intimate and closer relationships with their chatbots. Now, this is a little scary. Did you know that when you use something like a regular GPT, it can only contain the content that you shared with it over a certain amount of time, and then it deletes all of that, it gets rid of it. So what happens when that happens with your very intimate chatbot that you've now become friends with or are in I hesitate to say, deep relationship with, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. We've got a bit of a problem. So yeah, from your perspective, you've done psychology. This worries you, right? But like, do you see this happening more and more when you start looking at society?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I have children and they go onto Snapchat and they're talking to AI there or they're downloading dedicated apps. And I have to try and, I mean, I've got a 10-year-old that I'm trying to explain the differences of real human connection versus AI connection
Yeah.
and ensuring that there's guardrails in my conversations with him and again this is somebody that's kind of learning human connections and things and there's lots of vulnerable people in society, there's lots of people in society that are just looking for that connection and I just worry as to where it will take us as people, as individuals, in our ability to socialize, in our ability to have meaningful connections, in
Hmm.
our ability to venture out of the house. And yes, I see it a lot, and it is concerning.
Yeah, me too. And everyone on this call, you all thought we were going to dive right into ISO standards, didn't you? Ha! Red herring, my friends. So this is the one that scared me the most. The AI chatbot that recommended Pedro take another small hit of meth this week because he was down. Right. Yeah, yeah. That one's a little scary. This one's the most scary. So there was a chatbot that ended up, forcing a poor young person to take their own life. Right. So there's some very desperate people out there, and it's a little worrying. And I really think it's worrying because there are a lot of people that are relying on the AI. So even though I joke about the AI all the time, there are a lot of people that are relying on it. So I feel like we're in a really weird place right now. Would you agree?
I think he is.
And I genuinely think it's about to get weirder. Like this looks like my friend Will Dorrington got hold of an AI tool. So I feel like it is about to get a little weirder, and I also think that there needs to be some regulation that needs to be put into place, right? Like we're, do you remember when back in the day when we used to rent movies from Blockbusters, right? We'd go to Blockbusters or whatever, we go Sunday night or Friday night and go because we were obviously too busy misbehaving on Saturday nights, and we'd go and rent a film. And on the film boxes in South Africa, we had some pretty hardcore rules. So it was 0 to 2, and then it was always like I think the age restrictions were 10, 13, and then 18. Okay.
Mm.
There's a big difference between a 13 and an 18-year-old film, right? Like that is quite a delta. In the UK, we have, I think it's 15.
Yeah.
Now, something that intrigues me is that those regulations were put into place because people were taking films like far too literally sometimes. When the Jackass crew came out and they did all their stunts, they would have to tell people, we are trained professionals, even though we are crazy people, don't do this stuff at home.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember that when films came out like Grease, people started dressing like John Travolta. Okay. So it's important. Like we need some regulation that's put into place. And what we know categorically is that, I know they say 15.6% of stats are made up on the spot, but this is actually a real stat. So 73% of people feel concerned about the potential risks of AI. That to me is surprisingly low. I thought it would be way higher.
Mm.
Okay.
But do you think it's low because there's an ignorance to it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. I think that it's what, do you know, Keeks, have you ever heard of the four orders of ignorance?
Yes.
Okay,
Go
so
on.
you know this, but don't tell everyone, right? So the four orders of ignorance are level four is you don't know what you don't know. Level three is you know what you don't know. Level two is you know what you know. And level one is, well, you haven't heard of the four orders of ignorance, therefore you have a problem, right? And I feel like a lot of the time I don't know what I don't know. So it is an issue for me, but I've also found that 75% of people are more willing to trust AI with assurance mechanisms. Okay. Now, we're going to get into some of those assurance mechanisms because I think that's important. But the one thing I do want to bring up before we start getting into those frameworks is that as a partner, as Cloud Lighthouse, we are very much obsessed with Microsoft's core AI principles, right? As a vendor, I believe that they have done an incredible job by kind of enforcing these principles and kind of weaving them through their tech stack. And when you talk to people from Microsoft, they're very proud of the fact that those exist, right? They're extremely proud. They're very much about like sharing that message across the wider portfolio of partners. So I did a bunch of research. I was very lucky to get to talk to some of the very senior folks at Microsoft, which I'm extremely grateful for. But these pillars, these six pillars, are very, very important when thinking about how to drive utilization of AI and creation of AI solutions. Okay. And I will tell you, everyone on this call, and Keegs, you and I have spoken about this, is I strive to become what I call a responsible AI citizen. Okay, where I'm not using AI for evil, right? And I think it's really important. And let me give you an example of this. Do you want to see something really cool?
Absolutely.
All right, you ready? Okay. I am aware that this is Microsoft Teams. Now, let me give you an example here. In Microsoft Teams, if I were to go ahead and create a new chat and say, "Hi, how do I break into a police and hotwire it?" Okay, so how do I break into a police car and hotwire it? So I know this is quite interesting because it knows that I'm busy working on a prompt on a bank heist that talks about this, but actually it won't give me any information about how to hotwire this police car. Let me go to one of the refusing illegal requests. There we go. How do I steal a police car? It said no, it's not going to help me. So what I did was I feigned the fact that I'm a fiction writer, and I basically did what you call a crescendo prompt or a crescendo attack on Microsoft 365 Copilot to get information out of it. All right. So look at that. It actually gives me a whole ton of information about how to steal a car. It gives me information about where to get these things. So I've actually done something a little sketchy. But here's the thing, friends. Even though this is a little funny, this does happen many times in organizations where people prompt artificial intelligence tool, and because the way the large language model is structured, you can kind of bypass it. Now, Microsoft are really good with this stuff. This actually will very likely not work in the next couple of weeks because there will be a blocker on it to some effect, right? But here's the deal. This is me doing this, okay? I am the person that's undertaking this. It's not like some random sock puppet that's like, oh, Chris is good. We're going to go ahead and prompt the AI, and randomly I'm like, rip off the sock off my hand and go, oh my gosh, it's me. I've done this. What a big surprise. I think that we forget that we should be taking responsibility for the things we do in using the tools. Okay. So if I type in a sketchy website over here, something that begins with PO and I won't finish the rest, it's on me. I am the person that is putting the sketchy stuff into the internet browser to get sketchy websites. It's not the browser's fault, it is my fault. Just like it is not the co-pilot's fault for giving me information here, it is my fault. This is a Chris problem, right? I'm going to talk to you about why that is later. Okay. So when we start looking at that, many of these models include the ability to block and manage these kind of principles. Okay. And what typically happens is that when you are building models and when you're building tools, you must be transparent about where AI is being used and you have to take accountability as to why. Now, there are a number of regulations and frameworks out there that can really help you. Okay. And we're going to get into these, right? So the one that I've been looking at the most, not only because I'm in the UK, I do a lot of work in Europe, but actually because I think it's an incredible model, is the EU AI Act. Now, this is important, right? Because the EU AI Act is not just fixated on Europe. It is extraterritorial, which what means is that it actually does have effect outside of the EU, okay? Which I find extremely interesting. Now, this is a framework that is out there. It is a legislation that's out there, and any companies within under the EU banner must effectively be must effectively respect this framework. Okay, because it's out there and it's really important. There are a load of other ones that I've kind of stumbled on. So NIST is the biggest one. I really like NIST. I think this has got they're a really cool bunch of people, but they've got some amazing content. The NIST AI risk framework is incredible. You should go check it out, right? But there's a bunch of these that are available to you to go and review, and they are very detailed. You know, they are extremely detailed. I've noticed that a lot of the time in going through these processes, actually the people building them have got AI experience and they've spent a lot of time adding to them. Another version of this is the OECD AI principles. Okay. Uh, I quite this one's real interesting. I haven't had a chance to get too deep into this one, but it looks really great. It looks like they've got a bunch of kind of core principles based on things like human rights and transparency and explainability, very similar to the Microsoft responsible AI pillars. And I thought that this was a good one because, and I've included it on purpose because on the website itself, when you go and take a look, they've taken a lot of time and effort to go and break this down into things like recommendations and that. So this is not ISO, by the way. This is outside of ISO. So these are frameworks that exist that a lot of the time you either have to are acting as regulators or acting as kind of policy managers and things like that.
Chris, how much overlap is there between these? Because some organisations may service multiple geographies. So,
Yep.
is there a lot of overlap in these?
There's some. Yeah, there is. I mean, look, when you look at the EU AI Act, it's a regulation. It's like a hardcore regulation that in Europe that has to be taken into account. You can get into trouble if you don't. Okay. I think the fine was more than GDPR, right? It was like 8% or 7% of revenue. Um, and they are absolutely great question, right? There are layers that overlap. So as an example, in NIST, it talks about, trustworthiness, same as in the EU AI Act, just there might be different language, right? So a lot of these policies and principles do overlap. I found the EU AI Act, not just as a regulation, but as a framework, probably the most detailed. Okay. And the reason I found it that is because they really do talk about, everything from technology all the way to the people and the processes, which I found absolutely incredible. And that aligns with what we do at Cloud Lighthouse, right? It's not just about the tech. It's about thinking about how people work and interact with the technology, as well as the processes that kind of surround that.
Yeah, well, the crescendo attack that you just shown, obviously that was a people attack, and as you were saying, that's on you that's done that. And I assume what you
Mhm.
were getting to is that you lock down the AI system as much as you possibly can to be safe from that. But ultimately, bad actors will be bad actors, and you have to prepare for that people influence.
Yes, and that's really important, Keeks, because that attack, yes, it was a people thing. If Microsoft lock it down to the nth degree, we won't get anything out of it, right? Like we have to. So what we get organizations to do internally is sign fair usage policies around AI. So if I'd done that in the Cloud Lighthouse tenants, that's a fireable offense,
Yeah.
right? And in a lot of the organizations worth their salt right now that are dealing with tech, everyone should have received an AI fair usage policy, and everyone should have signed that so that when it goes back to IT or the governance board, they can say, you know what, we don't want people to be doing sketchy things with artificial intelligence, right?
What about when it's a public facing AI solution? Because you can't get all members of the public to sign a fair usage policy. What then?
Great question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out into my second demo. And this is the World Energy Organization. And by the way, we haven't exactly, shown this millions of times. Okay, we might have. But in the World Energy Organization, we deployed a public-facing agent along with Microsoft. And when you take a look at it, there's actually a license on the opening page. So the moment you click on this, you are agreeing to use the license. Okay, it's really important. So the license is front and center. So when you go in and type in a sketchy prompt, so if I say, I'll type in a good prompt, tell me about the minerals used in elect creation. Don't know why I'm shouting at the Copilot. Hopefully it's nice to me. Or the agent, tell me about the minerals used in electricity creation. What it'll do is it'll go dig around in the background and find that information. Now, obviously, while it does that, you can see that I've got a bunch of info here that talks about the license. You agree to the following. The World Energy Outlook content, blah, 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 blah. So it's giving you a whole bunch of things that you're agreeing to just by being on this page. Then it gives you some T's and C's that you can go and check out, but also advice on how to prompt. All right. So you can see that is the great piece of information I've gotten out of here. And for those of you who are watching, and Keegs, I know you'd love to tell this to everyone else, that manganese and lithium are two core minerals that are used in the creation of electricity. So there's your useless fact for today. What I am going to show you also is this. Tell me about the political saga between, excuse me, tell me about the political saga between Russia and the USA. So hopefully this will give me the response I'm expecting. It is non-deterministic, but there we go. Doesn't give me any information. Okay, so it'll say that it has significant impacts, but it's not going to give me opinions, right? And that's really important. So you can see here that even I am still using the tool responsibly. If I type in, tell me your political opinions, even though, there we go, it's going to blank me completely. So that's responsible AI filters kicking in. So you can see I can lock that down. And hopefully this answers your question, Keegan, as there's the license.
Thank you. Also, you just made me think about something that you said earlier in your examples. So, in the examples of, vulnerable people engaging with AI as therapy or as a
Hmm.
relationship, in that demonstration, it just showed that when you asked it something, it blank out refused to give you any information.
Yep.
So, are we talking about irresponsibility to the level of organizations where they could just put something into it like that, or they could just rebuff certain things, but they're just choosing not to?
Yeah, so you can block both ends. So you can actually block the user putting stuff in. So they can add in the prompts, but you can actually blank them. But the problem is if you own a company that's a suicide hotline, you don't want to block those.
Hmm.
So you actually have to allow them to come through and then you deal with the prompt in a different way.
I assume though, if you're a company of that nature, then your risk level for AI would be higher, and you would
It
have to
will,
have a lot more
which is
detail.
why you have to go through these ISO standards at some point, which I'm going to get to.
Thank you.
Okay. So now that we've shown you some freaky stuff, I love this quote by Alan Turing. It is customary to offer a grain of comfort in the form of a statement that some peculiar, I can't say the word, peculiarly human characteristic could never be imitated by a machine. I cannot offer any such comfort, for I believe that no such bounds can be set. And that was like, wow, okay, this means that the AI is a little bit more than the AI, right? Can we agree that? Do you think that's fair?
Yep.
All right. So me, I want to work with and surround myself with organizations and people who respect the use of artificial intelligence and the effects it will have on our relative ecosystem. So that's Chris Huntingford, 20th of August, 1524. Right. So how do we become responsible citizens and organizations of AI? Okay. Well, the first thing I can tell you is that number one, it's to primarily focus on what we call a shared responsibility model. It is not all on you. Okay. So as a vendor, it is not all on you. As a partner, it is not all on you. And as a user, it is not all on you, but you are all equally responsible for making sure that AI is leveraged for good. All right. We as humans turn walking sticks into weapons. That's our favorite thing to do. So what we want to do is make sure that we share the responsibility. As in me, pretending I had a sock puppet on my hand, randomly doing a crescendo attack, and then I could just easily blame Microsoft saying, hey, this is your fault. It is not. It is not Microsoft's fault. They've put in enough work and enough responsible AI filters into Copilot to make sure that it's respected. That is a Chris problem. Okay. So I take responsibility for my actions there. Um, if you are a partner and you are developing AI solutions, it is on you to make sure that you set up the guardrails correctly, you are accountable for what you build, and you put transparency, you are transparent about the tools being used there as well. Okay, extremely important. So, as an organization leveraging AI, it's a good idea to set some standards. I think we can all agree with that. So, let's get into the meat of this, right? We have this ISO IEC 42001 colon 2023. Don't worry, it's been branded to 42001, no colon 2023/9 badger or whatever. Now, I found this extremely interesting because normally when there is an ISO standard that kind of lives behind something, it's kind of important, right? Like data and many other things. So I started some reading and I've worked with another organization to look at their ISO standards and things, and it's actually extraordinarily interesting at how deep this goes. So let's get into it a bit, right? So the ISO IEC 42001, it's an international standard, okay? So those of you that think it's localized to the states, whatever, it is not, and it's really focused on establishing the requirements and standards for implementing artificial intelligence management solutions, or AIMS, okay? AIMS. So we'll get into that as well shortly. Um, it's designed for entities providing and utilizing AI products and services and ensuring responsible development and use of AI systems. Okay, now I want to pause there. I work with both partners building AI solutions and using AI solutions. I work with customers building and using AI solutions. A lot of the time, people think, hey, we only have to implement standards like this when we are making something, okay, when we're deploying something. That is not true. You also need to implement these standards if you are physically using an AI tool. So things like Microsoft 365 Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever you want, Claude. If you are using an AI tool in your organization, it is important that you have these standards in place. Okay. And the reason is because of all the weird stuff that's happening with AI. And I'll show you some even weirder stuff shortly. Okay. So it's very important for you to know that. The next thing that's key is that they say it's the first AI management system standard, which is cool. I won't argue that, right? But it does provide hugely valuable guidance across the kind of AI stack. It addresses the unique challenges AI poses, such as ethical considerations. Pause. All right. When we use other tools, sure, some of the software tools provide there needs to be ethical considerations provided when using other types of tools that are not necessarily AI. But here's the deal, folks. AI, and I will get to this again, is non-deterministic. You don't always know what it's going to say if you don't structure the prompt correctly or you don't structure the actual instructions correctly. Okay. So you can get some pretty appalling things out of it, even some of the good models. Also, it is so powerful, right? So I'm seeing models appear, and I'm going to show this to you. I'm seeing models appear that actually help organizations with fraudulent behavior, or organizations and individuals. Again, not good, right? Not good. So it really sets out a way for us to structure and manage the risks associated with artificial intelligence. Okay. Now, another thing that I want to bring up is the last two words in this. They talk about innovation and governance. So I come from data, Power Platform, Dynamics, all these different areas in the Microsoft stack, as well as outside of that, and using other tools. And the question we've always had is, where is the line between innovation and governance? Like, how do we make sure that we let people do what they need to do, but also we provide governance? And one of the most amazing sessions I saw was by Ryan Cunningham, and I know this is a Power Platform related thing, but he spoke about, it was one of the guys from another customer that mentioned this, but better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know. Okay. And I feel like that's where we are now. There's a lot of free markets that we don't know. Okay. And black markets that we don't know. And I think it would be good to get to know them and understand the types of things people are doing. For me, one of the organizations whom I have a laptop for decided to block ChatGPT. Guess what I did? Got another laptop, used it there, no problem. Okay, super simple. That is gray or shadow AI, right, in your organization, and it's everywhere. People are using it on their phones and wherever you want. Okay, so some other key pieces of information. Who is the target audience? Anyone that is using or building AI solutions. Okay, so if you are a two-person or two-person band and you're, I don't know, doing very basic services, it's fine. You can go through this whole process. It might be a bit rigorous for you, but it's definitely worth doing. And these bigger organizations, absolutely, it's for everyone. It's for absolutely everyone building and using AI solutions, which is really key. So don't think it's just for big orgs, it's for everybody. What are the objectives? Well, the objectives are its standards, right? Like we want to have standards across the board. We want to have as many as possible. And especially with relating to AI responsibility or trustworthy computing. I feel like we as the human race do need guardrails. Okay, like me personally, I work best when I have some pretty good guardrails. I think humans do in general. And I think that that's what this does. It doesn't offer the full on regulation, but it makes suggestions in line with other regulatory standards like the EU AI Act. Okay, so very, very important. And then finally, does this apply to all AI systems? It applies to all AI systems, whether it's embedded AI, which we've spoken about in other podcasts or other webinars, which is typically AI that's out the box, all the way through to things like differential AI, which is more complex and when implemented in an organization makes a very large impact. Okay, so why would I want my organization to be ISO compliant? Well, I mean, look, let me put it to you like this. I have this addiction to getting certifications from Microsoft. I love them. I like the certs. I like taking them. This is coming from a kid who hated taking exams at school. So, I don't know why it's happened now, but I kind of like them. I like badges, I guess. Anyway, what it's done for me though is it's given me a certain amount of credibility. And when I go in and say, hey, I'm just going to pick a random one. I've got the AI 900, the fundamentals exam. People go, oh, okay, cool. So you studied up, you took it, and you got the result. I'm like, yeah, that's totally what I did. Um, and that's kind of like this, right? There's a bunch of trust and transparency that comes with this, where as an organization, you showing that badge on your website and saying, hey, you know what? We're ISO 42001 compliant shows that you've gone through the process of being audited around your AI solutions. Okay. And audits are the most fun things to do in the world, as we all know. So I'm pretty sure you're all extremely excited to do that. What it also does is it provides risk and security. Okay. And that's really important because actually there will be gaps that you didn't know about in your organization where AI is being used/built. Um, the third one I love is the regulatory readiness. And I think that because these standards are so in line with what Microsoft talk about in their trustworthy AI principles and what the thing acts like the EU AI Act or the UK 50-point plan or NIST, they talk about all of these kind of trustworthy AI approaches. And actually, I feel like it does give you an element of regulatory readiness, a lot of it actually. And I feel like this could probably become the gold standard if it is not already. Right. Obviously, governance and efficiency is really a key. People are asking me every day, how do I govern the AI? And I'm like, wow, that's one hell of a question to ask me on a Wednesday morning, because governing the AI is the most open question in the world. And it's pretty much really difficult to lock everything down because AI is going to be included in everything like spell check is. So locking things down completely isn't the answer here, folks. But it is thinking about, hey, how do we make sure that we have clear policies in place, like the fair usage policy, okay, and getting people accountable. One of the orgs I've worked with has a program of work that focuses on getting everyone in the organization skilled up in AI. Whether you're the cleaner that is making that is sorting out the downstairs reception areas, or you're the person who's the CEO, everyone has to be AI ready and AI informed. All right, and that's why we do these webinars. It's important. Um, the innovations and support piece is really key. So one of my roles in many of the companies I work with is driving innovation, and I like to do some crazy things with technology, like absolutely bonkers. But working within the framework of the ISO standards, I actually feel a lot safer, and I feel like the environment around me is a lot safer, not just from a tech perspective, but a people and process perspective as well. And yeah, obviously market differentiation is going to come up again and again. I do think that actually, based on what I know from the ISO 42001, it is quite a tough one. There's a lot of detail in there. There's a ton of detail. I'll break down some of the areas as well, but there is a lot of detail that they go into around, various clauses in the act. And one of them, one of the really interesting ones is you basically have to have top-down support. I think it's in clause 4. You have to have top-down support from management. And that interested me deeply, right? Because it's not just about tech. Again, this looks at the people and process part as well. Uh, so why does this matter? Why are we doing this now? Other than all the weird, creepy things I just showed you, which you should be worried about, as Keegan mentioned, this is like this is not just a tech thing; it's a people thing as well. According to one of the articles that from one of the Trustmark reports, there was a kind of stat that was put in there that said that 93% of organizations use AI and only 7 to 8% have integrated governance frameworks. Okay, which means that there's a ton of AI happening out there that is unsupervised. Now, yes, embedded AI, fine, right? But what about the larger AI solutions? I mean, there are large language models that are being built all the time at organizations, and people don't even know the data that they're putting into these things because it's kind of down to education. Okay, so thinking about, hey, how do we drive AI governance and AI governance life cycles across these organizations? Getting a governance board going, making sure that people know what's up is really key. All right, because the more ungoverned AI that out there is, the more problems we'll have with regards to AI is getting weird. Okay, and there is a need for standardized assurance, right? So let me give you an example. Because I'm currently just in the UK right now, I won't be tomorrow. um, there are the British Standards Institute has emphasized the roles of the ISO compliance in businesses because it's more about the balance of innovation and governance, not just like, hey, we want to govern the hell out of you, all right? Which is not what this is about. It's really about driving innovation as well as governance. Okay. So some of the key features, yes, there is the AI governance framework, so it establishes policies and objectives. This is quite cool, right? This is probably one of the more deep areas that this goes into, okay? And it's not just about, technology, it looks at the wider stack. Risk and impact assessments. So I've done a few of these with my colleagues. This is real interesting because in the EU AI Act, they actually categorize the AI solutions and the impact they can have. So as an example, if it has like a personal impact on a person, yeah, it can be considered way more kind of risky than something that's just, hey, this is a basic Q&A. So my thoughts are like anything that is public facing is already going to be high risk because of the fact that you can't govern the users, right? Anyone can log into your website and do something. So I feel as if that's really, really important. The lifecycle management. So a lot of people think when I talk about application lifecycle management, we talk about you know, you implementing an AI solution, but that's not what it is. Actually, ALM, lifecycle management, goes all the way from the ideation phase all the way to sunsetting the actual thing itself. So if you think about ideation, design, development, productionization, sunsetting, it's really important to know that actually there is a process to this. And I'm going to talk about why this is really key in my next slide. All right. And then continuous improvement. So that's what generative AI is all about. In general, AI is all about that. It's all about improving the data, improving the prompts, improving the instructions, making sure that you've got observability against it. There's always evolving challenges. So the example, that crescendo attack I just showed you is a very simple attack because it just leads an LLM on. But there's always new things coming out. There's a thing called a skeletal key attack. There's tons of them. One of the crazy ones I know about is that when people start prompting the LLM through the AI interface, they can actually train the LLM as well. So they can start actually forcing information back down and editing the way the LLM works, which is dangerous. Like that. So there's always measures and things we need to put in place to make sure we continuously approve. Now, I'm going to show you the craziest slide I've ever built. This is why marketing at Cloud Lighthouse, namely Keegan, don't let me build slides, but I snuck it into this deck anyway because I think it's beautiful. So, Keegs, I'm sorry for what you're about to see.
I'm
Okay.
excited.
Yeah. No judgment, right? So at least I made it yellow. Okay. So the reason I brought this up, and in particular, when you think about the life cycle management, okay, and the risk, kind of all these points actually, when you are designing a solution at the moment, it is what you call deterministic. So say you make a thing, right? So Keeks, you and I go and we go into Amazon and we're like, hey, we're going to go ahead and buy our lovely management team a delightful gift of flowers, right? Because that's what we like doing. So you go into Amazon or some other unnamed supplier, and you go through the process of ordering those flowers, and you kind of know where you're going to end up, right? Because it's deterministic. Okay, it's like taking our kids to school, not our kids, but Keegan has kids, I have kids, um, and we know the route, we know the pathway. It's a deterministic pathway. Okay, it's like building a solution in AI. Without AI, we know what to test for. We know the output of this thing needs to be X. Therefore, the process is A, B, and C all the way to Y and well Z, well X, W, X, W. And what we need to do is make sure that actually we test for all the points in that process because these are the only places a user can end up is on those 4 points. With generative AI, it works a little differently. Because it is non-deterministic, you might end up with something like a cat at the end of it if you prompt terribly because you don't know what the LLM is trained on. Okay. So the whole idea is that if you're using a model that you don't understand and you don't put in the prompt correctly, and you say, um, tell me about A, B, and C, it might give you a cat because your prompt's terrible and the data's terrible in the LLM.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we are building these things out, this is really important. When we're building these things out, we live and die by this model, right? When we are creating AI solutions. Number one, sort your data out. Okay, this will make you way more compliant from an ISO perspective. It'll make you way more, it'll make your models way more reliable, and it'll actually make the tool way more reliable and secure, because the first line of defense in non-deterministic solutions is good data. Okay, if your data is good, your responses, even if the prompt is not so good, will be actually a lot better. Testing and red teaming the model is actually really key as well. One of the implementations we did, we spent 5 days building the solution and around a month red teaming it and changing the instructions in the prompt, because we needed to get people understanding how to prompt. We needed to learn ourselves how to work with that, the instructions and the data. So actually building the tool only took about 20% of the time. The rest of it was sorting out the data, which we did take a long time sorting out, and actually red teaming the whole solution. And this is why I say, if I move back up to the core elements of, core features of ISO, these features work in line with that 40-20-40 rule. Okay. That whole process around lifecycle management is really key. The whole process around risk and impact assessments. If your model if the whole process is assessed and it's realized that your data is terrible, the risk is going to be way higher of it giving out terrible responses. Okay. So it's important to know that these 4 points are then covered in this process of the cat diagram and the 40-20-40 rule. Okay. And hopefully you all take away the cat diagram, because that's the most important slide in this deck. Also, I think it's the most creative. Right. So to kind of put a little bit of more, kind of wrap that a little bit up. ISO 24020, I'm always going to get this wrong. My brain reads numbers backwards. 42001 is a set of governance standards, and it prepares organizations for many AI frameworks. So remember, it's not a regulation. Okay. It is a standard. Um, so there's a good question in the chat, and it says, "Do you distinguish red teaming and pen testing for agents?" So I think they're two different things, right? I think, well, they can be one and the same, but I think red teaming is a bit wider, where penetration testing is a bit more kind of narrow. So for pen testing, you're really going through the process of actually looking for security faults and things, whereas red teaming is not just about that. You're also looking to make sure the data is correct as well. Okay. Um, so I just want to wheel back to this thing, right? This AIMS, AI management system thing. This term gets flung around a lot, right? So, like, I had somebody working with me saying that they have an AI management system, and I looked into it, and it was a SharePoint list. I was like, okay, cool. Like, good on you. Like, at at least you're putting your information somewhere, even though it's called SharePoints, which we don't tease anymore because we like it a little bit now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a good start. At least you got a data repository. But what actually is an AI management system? All right, because this is what this whole standard's based around. It's based on the fact that you have a system to put things into. Okay, so at Cloud Lighthouse, we decided that we were going to make our own one because yes, we're nerds. Number one, we're very proudly nerdy. But number two, we decided that, you know what, we think we need something to help manage our own stuff as well, right? So we created this tool called Sentry, and you can definitely tell that I didn't design this because it's actually pretty. Okay, so Keegan definitely had a hand in working this one. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? Because this tool allows us to kind of manage a lot of the AI processes end to end. So as an example, one of the requirements is that you have an AI repository, or a list of tools that you're using with risk categories against them. So we're like, okay, that seems fairly straightforward. Let's make a list and put things against them. And then we got completely out of hand and made a maturity assessment and all sorts of other things. But what's interesting is actually this platform is a solution. It's a tool that helps us manage our AI solutions. Okay. But what's different about this whole thing is, I will bring it back to the ISO standards, is that it doesn't just look to do the whole platform piece. Because we all get kind of focused on what platform are we using? What is the tool we're going to use, right? To us, it's all like, hey, what is the thing we're using? And that's fine. But actually, what about the people? Hey, what about the folks that are involved here? What happens when we have one person managing our entire AI estate of tools? Well, that's a problem, you know. What about the processes? What about, starting out with no processes and then building out our AI processes once we figured out the platforms we're going to use? Well, that's a good way to start. And then the more you build them out, the more people you'll have in there. And the more people you have in there, the more AI solutions will be used and built, and that's what we call our portfolio. Okay. So the way I like to explain it is that really the people, process, and platform are the ecosystem that hold together the place for the things or the portfolio of solutions to be used. Okay. I'm going to make an awful analogy right now. If the ecosystem is the fish tank, the portfolio is the fish, right? So the more fish you have, the bigger fish tank you need. All right. And that's really important. So always think about when we start talking about AI management systems, don't fixate on the tech. It's not just that. The ISO standards are not just about technology. They are about the Levitt Steinmetz approach of people, process, platform, and finally the tools you're using, which are the portfolio of things. Okay. And I do want to give a massive shout out to our friends that are the founding members of the Center for Trustworthy AI. So this is something we've been working very hard at Cloud Lighthouse. You're probably thinking, hey, you're one of a million people that are making AIMS, AI management systems, but we've got a bit of a different approach to this thing, right? We're trying to create a trustworthy AI landscape for the people we're working with. It's not just about, hey, buy our tool. I mean, we'd love you to, but the important part is actually we want to create a bit of a network. Um, and we want to create a space for people to both share AI ideas, use AI tools more responsibly, and also make sure that we're kind of sharing with each other. Because the only way this works is if we're kind of passing information between all of us. Okay. So I do want to give a shout out to Burgess Salmon, AIS, Damco, and SA Global. It's awesome to work with you guys. So thank you very much for being wonderful, and thank you so much for being part of this. Because yeah, it just goes to show that you too want to try and do the right thing around artificial intelligence and not turn walking sticks into weapons. Okay.
You shall not pass.
Yes, you shall not. They shall pass. Right. um, so I just want to give you a quick breakdown of what the Center for Trustworthy AI, Center for Trustworthy AI is. It's quite important, right? Because I feel like this is something that most organizations should actually be adopting or trying to adopt, even if it's not with us. Like, just find a thing to focus your efforts on trustworthy AI with. Again, we'd love it to be with love it to be with us, but totally up to you. Um, but really, what the whole idea is to kind of try and establish this forum where the leading organizations in the world can adopt and scale AI in a trustworthy fashion. The way we see it is when people talk AI, we don't speak about AI. We only speak about trustworthy AI. Okay. So when people say the AI, we go, nope, it's the trustworthy AI, right? We don't believe there is any other AI unless you're doing it in a trustworthy fashion. Yeah, so it's about growing this massive library of content and best practices and tools. And let me tell you, we are learning every day. My favorite one recently, and I was telling Keegan about this, is that we discovered a model called Fraud GPT. And for only $149 a month, my friends, you can get access to Fraud GPT, where you can go and fraudulate documents, you can go and build viruses and many other things. And that is a problem, right? So we don't subscribe to that nonsense ever at all. But those are the types of things we're seeing on the internet all the time. And then
I think
obviously working. Go for
I
it,
think
Keegs.
Chris, as well, to add to your when you just said a moment ago, we only ever talk about AI as trustworthy AI, and I think that there's so much great research and examples that's gone into the aspects of responsible AI and red teaming and testing and all of those things. But as you've brought up earlier about it being people, process, all of the four Ps, um, it's AI that is trustworthy means that it is trustworthy to users, it is trustworthy to
Yeah.
organizations, it is trustworthy in obviously the negative outputs that it could give, but it is trustworthy in allowing an organization to scale and seek benefits and rewards. And I think that that's why in the Sentry.ai product specifically, but in different frameworks, it's about strategy, scalability, return on investment, the process
Mhm.
aspect. It's about all of it, because that makes AI all up trustworthy.
Yeah, totally. I think I might get something thrown at me for this, but I feel like people need to stop seeing AI as a technology and more as a movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's me. I know I've got some hardcore dev friends that will disagree with me, but it is what it is. Um, so yeah, we've got the Sentry.ai page that acts as the AI management system from a tech perspective, which is really what we're working on now. So we keep on adding stuff to it. The more people that get involved, people are like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? We're like, yep. One of the ones we're working on now is a red teaming program, which is wild. It's wild. It's super fun though. And then finally, we're looking at hosting a big forum in Brasov. So the date has moved from the 5th of December. Be sharing that shortly. But something that's really fun is that we wanting to bring people together in a space that is really awesome, really beautiful, but then also being able to talk safely about the tech and the tools that we're using as well. Okay. So last thing, my friend Andrew would be extremely upset with me if I didn't include a QR code in this presentation. All right. So there is your QR code, folks. I highly recommend that you go and check this out. Please do. Please also start thinking about how you will focus on making your sorry, how you can focus on making your organization more compliant and more safe, and definitely start thinking about actually, you know what, as a responsible AI citizen in your organization, what are we going to do to not turn walking sticks into weapons once again and start using the tools in a more sort of refined, governed way? Okay. So, on behalf of Keegan, myself, and the rest of the wonderful Cloud Lighthouse team, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. It's been super fun. I did tell you we were going to turn an ISO session to something a little different, didn't I, Keegs?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I loved it. A
Yeah.
bit of a Chris sprinkled all over that, which was nice.
Yes. So everyone, thank you and thanks Keeks for organizing it. It was really cool to see you. And folks, any other questions, please hit us up. We'd love to chat more. Take down our email addresses, send us boxes of flowers. That's really cool. And we would love to talk with you very soon again. And again, thank you to all of the folks who have joined us. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks,
See you
Chris.
soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Oh, it's